Hey, welcome everybody to another weekly Wednesday, or actually a Thursday live stream in this case, with the MSI Insiders. I'm Peter.
And I'm Mike. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome.
You know us quite well. And you know when I'm here, it's time for a graphics card. So, today,
and everyone's gone.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Just like all the stock, right? I saw it in the chat. I saw it in the chat.
People talking about it.
Too soon? Too soon? Anyway, no, I mean, this is something that comes up, you know, every launch of every new product pretty much. Like, there's always more demand than there is stock, especially at the beginning, and especially when talking about graphics cards for the past. I mean, yeah. I've been working at MSI for over 10 years, right? So I've seen quite a few launches. But, like, it seems like the popularity and success of PC gaming, let's say, right? The fact that it's become more and more popular is actually just making that situation worse, because it just means that there's more people wanting the newest thing whenever it comes out. So
and probably it also doesn't help that you can do more with the GPU than just gaming, so
True.
There is an even bigger target group.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. There's more people, like professionals and stuff. I mean, I remember when I joined MSI, it was about, you know, the 900 series had just launched, and I mean, it was, you could do a couple of things with it, but I mean, it wasn't
some mining back then.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't like quite as, you know,
AI wasn't a thing like it is now, for example.
No, definitely not, indeed. So, yeah, and it was still kind of, I don't know, it had something nerdy to it still. So it wasn't quite as ubiquitous and cool as it is now. Anyway, yeah, welcome to today's live stream. Today we're going to be talking about the thing that we are pretty much covering up with our chairs. Very good design there.
Oh,
very good.
My chair cannot go low enough. That's a pity.
Oh, how low can you go?
Oh wait, we have another solution. Hey, there we go. Yes. That's better.
Yeah, chilling on the couch behind you. Anyway, so
see you in 2 hours.
yeah. So a closer look at both the 5090 and the 5080, because last time, of course, it was pretty much the announcement that we talked about these GPUs, and so there was, you know, a limit to the things we could say. So we could, you know, talk about the models a little bit, but we couldn't discuss anything about performance, anything about specs, like, you know, technical specs. We weren't allowed to show the PCB or anything like that. Now
we can.
The gloves are off, right? So, yeah, there's a lot to discuss as well. Just an hour ago, the reviews for all the AIB, so also our own MSI cards, was lifted. So all the reviews came online. So we also, that's why we started just a little bit late. Sorry for that. But yeah, we wanted to include a little bit of information from some of those reviews as well. But yeah, and so we've got, just for your information as well, we've got a setup right in front of me. This is not a 5080, this is actually a 5090. This, however, is a 5080. So, Mike, if you, and so in front of me, this is a Supreme card. This is a Vanguard. And if you recall,
looks different.
Yeah, if you recall, we discussed and showed some of these cards, most of them actually in detail in one of our previous live streams where we introduced the series. We weren't allowed to turn the cards on back then. We are allowed to do that now, so we'll show you a little bit more, of course.
Do some benchmarking with that one as well?
Exactly. But if you recall, we mentioned that the Vanguard, it's a new concept, new card in our lineup compared to previous generations. And we did mention that it is quite close. It's like a flashier brother to the Supreme card. And you'll keep that in mind, because you'll see what I mean with that. That it's very close to the Supreme in more than one way. But we'll see that later on in some of the numbers. Anyway, today we've also got a giveaway. I think
that card is as wide as an MSI employee. Either the cards are too big, or you don't get enough food. Well, if I have it closer,
exactly,
almost.
Yes. Actually, maybe we should start putting that in the specifications on the datasheet. Instead of slot width, like MSI employee width.
But it is big, because actually last week I was on my skiing holiday and I had a lot of food. So, and it is still almost my size. So yes, they are big cards.
This is supersized Mike.
Yeah,
right
it is supersized me. But there are, of course, different versions. So not all of them will be this big. As Peter already mentioned, this Vanguard version is relatively close to the Supreme, also meaning that it's one of the biggest models out there.
Yeah.
But later, more about the lineup, because there will also be some smaller models available.
Exactly.
If you're like me and want to build in a mini ITX.
Ooh, then it's still going to take you a little while, I think. Because there will be smaller models. I think there are actually smaller models planned, like a dual fan model. Like
but there are some mini ITX cases that can nowadays fit triple fan models as well.
Well, that's impressive indeed. But if you're really looking for shorter ones, there are some planned, I believe.
Ones,
But those will be a bit further down the line, of course, of what's coming up. Other graphics cards. Anyway, thanks for joining us. If you have questions, please ask them in the chat. We do have a lot of content to get through, so we're not sure if we can answer any and all questions, but we'll try to answer the most common ones that you're asking, and also the ones that we actually can answer. I see a lot of questions in the chat about stock. Those, unfortunately, I cannot answer. It's not that I'm not allowed to.
Especially original stock is impossible for us to
we don't
know all the details.
We don't have information live about stock levels on our screen or anything like that. That's actually not even our job, so we don't really have that information. We know, as always with a launch like this, stock is limited initially, and it will take a while. And as we always say, look, if you're very concerned about things like price markups and stuff like that, just best to wait a little bit and let everybody, that has FOMO, do the first purchase, and then wait for later batches to arrive when everything is a bit more normalized, let's say. Anyway, all right, so let's get going. Da Poets, silent and gaming switch. What's the main difference in performance? Please stick around because we will actually get to that. That's part of some of the data we will show. So that's actually a really good question. There is a difference, more than just fan speed. See, Alan JT is saying our headquarters is in Taiwan, which is correct. And as some of you may know, indeed, currently it is the Lunar New Year, which is the New Year for all Taiwanese people, indeed. So everything pretty much in China, Taiwan, and in that direction, everything is closed. Everybody's on holiday, having a good time, a well-deserved holiday, well-deserved break. So indeed, at the moment, we also didn't have any opportunity to get extra information other than what we had in the previous weeks already. Also, probably, and traditionally, this affects a bit the production as well, because while everybody's on vacation at the moment, factories are closed in China as well. So. But this is a yearly thing, right? So this is normal. I believe usually they try to plan for this, so it's normal.
We still have plenty of stuff to talk about today. So.
We do, absolutely. We've prepared some really nice things. Yes. So I would say let's get going.
Yeah.
Maybe first, let's first do a bit of an overview. We can go to the capture here indeed. So this slide will look familiar if you've seen our previous live stream where we introduced all the series. Here you can see all the different graphics cards we have. We talked about them last time, but you can see there from left to right there's Ventus 3X. Then there is the new card, which is Vanguard. In the middle there is the Supreme Liquid, which is a concept we've also had for a couple of generations. Then to the right of that there is our Supreme card, which is our most premium air-cooled card, of course. And to the right of that is the gaming card, which is also very well known in our lineup. And that's pretty much just the beginning. Usually later on there might be more cards being added to it. Actually we have
smaller ones.
Yeah, exactly. Smaller ones, but also just different ones, variations. Sometimes you'll have white versions of certain cards, for example, or different colors, things like that.
Those are popular nowadays.
White
cards.
Another thing I wanted to go into is this. Because recently... today,
I already see the question in chat. No white cards coming?
Yeah, well, I mean, traditionally, yes. I don't know. I think some have been announced. Yeah, we also have some of our product pages online, so there should be some white cards in there already, maybe. Anyway, if not...
our stream, we were reading your mind.
Yes. If not, then you heard it here first. Whoops. Anyway, I don't think it's a big surprise to anybody. But yeah. more detailed specifications of the 5070 Ti and 5070 models were recently released as well. So we thought it would be nice to have throw together a bit of an overview here. So you can see the 50 series lineup in its full, in a bit more detail, let's say. Now I don't want to cover all of them individually, but yeah, just to show you the difference between the big 5090, which we have in front of me here as well, and the cards that you can expect later on. I don't know exactly the launch date for the 5070 Ti or 5070, but yeah, there is already some specs available there, so you can kind of get an idea of, at least specs-wise, what to expect. So 5070 Ti will have the same amount of memory as the 5080. 5070 will have 12 gigs of GDDR7. Also, in terms of the CUDA cores and the RT cores, of course, every time you go a step lower, let's say, in the GPU, it will be a corresponding step down with the number of cores that you can expect. But they are still the new Blackwell architecture, so that's nice. Another thing we wanted to highlight is the encoders and decoders, which I included here. You always mention that as well, Mike. And so this generation, NVIDIA did something really nice and remarkable as well, I think, especially for people who are into content creation and or streaming, which is also content creation, I guess. Especially on the higher end cards, let's say, they have more than just a single encoder and decoder. So as you can see on the right there, the 5070.
More even than a double encoder.
Yeah, exactly. yeah, true, yeah.
And that's a first, actually.
Yeah. So we were actually still trying to figure out, and I think we're still doing that, like, how does that work? Like, you know, can you line up multiple, processes one process and use multiple encoders or decoders on it, or you know, how does that work? Which it's kind of a new concept, I think.
Yeah, I haven't used it, for example, in stuff like Blender. You can also use it, of course, but when streaming, we, for example, use a program called Restream, and basically we send out a single stream, and that one processes it over different platforms. So you have YouTube, you have Twitch, you have X, etc.
In the past we used to do that. There was like XSplit, which we used at the very beginning, which you could use, but it was very limited. I think we could do 2 or 3, maybe.
Yeah. Well, like back in the day, we had two encoders.
Yeah, because you had the CPU and the GPU, right?
Yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah.
But if you have multiple, you can do it with more. I don't know how to support in OBSs because we don't use it here. No. But I could imagine that, for example, if you want to use stream to different channels, you could do it simultaneously. In theory, with multiple encoders. Yeah.
So anyway, quite exciting and a big
also
difference.
Better encoders, not just more encoders, that's why, also improved.
Exactly, that's why I included also the encoders are 9th gen, which means, and on the 40 series they were 8th gen, so they are definitely an improvement and different. It's a bit technical what the difference. I think it's mostly color encoding, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah. There's a different and better, more advanced color encoding. There's more information there to be had for color grading and stuff like that. So for content creators, that creates extra possibilities. And also the decoders are 6th gen, whereas last generation they were 5th gen. So also there, some improvements. So it's quite nice. Another big difference, of course, PCI interface. The 5th series uses Gen 5.
Which doesn't mean that you have to use Gen 5.
No, they are backward compatible, indeed.
So if you still have a motherboard that goes up to Gen 4 or even Gen 3 will work. Or further back, of course, the bandwidth will be lower. I saw there were already some media testing with the different PCI Express generations. And I believe the conclusion was if you go from PCI Express 5.0 to 4.0, you lose like 1 to 2%. 1 or 2%. To 3.0 is like 3 to 4%. So still
in total, so it's like 2%, around 2% per generation that you go, something like that. So
it was relatively limited. So it's not necessarily that you need a motherboard with PCI Express Gen 5 in order to run these cards.
Indeed.
But for graphics cards, the difference is limited. But of course, if you use Gen 5 SSD and put that in a Gen 4 SSD slot, that's a whole different story.
But that's because it uses a lot more bandwidth. It utilizes more of the bandwidth.
It basically maxes it out.
Exactly. And that's the big difference. So the graphics cards at the moment, and especially with the games and the way that they're designed, they don't use the full bandwidth capacity of PCIe yet. With Gen 3, they might be getting somewhere close to it, but Gen 4 and Gen 5, they're nowhere near the max of that. However, this can always change. We've seen some concepts like direct storage being used in the past already a bit more. And if that becomes more ubiquitous, that means that you at the moment the CPU is kind of still in between the graphics card and your storage. But if that's eliminated, and that's kind of what direct storage is meant to do, you get more of a direct connection between your storage and the speed it can do and the graphics card. So then you probably are looking at way more intensive bandwidth usage. So whenever some things like that come around, you may be looking at indeed that it's definitely worth making sure you also have a motherboard at least Gen 4, if not Gen 5 at some point. But yeah, at the moment, especially for gaming, yeah, there's not a huge necessity.
At least not on a times 16 slot. Of course,
no.
if you use it on a more limited slot, with maybe 8 lanes available, and then use it on Gen 3, that could be
or God forbid, times 4. But you don't want to do that.
But times 4 on Gen 5 is actually, in terms of bandwidth, identical to Gen 3 times 16. Yeah. So there we do know that it will be like 3 to 4%. Yeah. But the lower you go in the generation, basically, the more lanes you want to compensate for it. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, and of course you have the TGP, which is the total graphics power. It means so there you can kind of see that it goes from 5090, almost 600 watts or about 600 watts, to 5080, which is 360 watts on average. And then 5070 Ti will be 300 watts or thereabouts, and 5070 will be 250 watts. And I also included the recommended power supply spec, which is mandated by nvidia, of course, so this is not unique to MSI, but which is quite a bit higher compared to the actual usage of the GPU. And
so 5090 on your test bench, what power supply are you using?
At least, I don't know what is in there, that's your specialty.
It's an MPG A1000GS.
There you go,
so
at least 1
watt
kilowatt.
Supply.
Exactly. Yeah.
Last week actually, or Mankit, I was on my skiing holiday, but Mankit and Ruud, they did a live stream about our new power supplies, including the AGS series. They come in multiple versions, but also our AI 1600T. So it's a 1600 watt power supply.
Nice.
So for example, if you want to use multiple cards simultaneously, maybe you want to do stuff with AI or rendering, there multiple cards still make sense. Then for example, a 1600 watt would make sense.
So then you could almost do a 5090, 5070 combination when it comes out, because that's recommended 1000 watts plus 650.
Yeah, but the recommendation is for the full system, not just for the card.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, two 5090s you can run on a 1600 watt power supply.
You would expect so, correct. Anyway, but yeah, so we thought we'd include it here just as an overview for the information. Right, so then let's get into the performance, because I think that's what most people will be wanting to know about, especially the gaming performance. What can you expect? So we borrowed, and I use that term very loosely, we took the a screenshot of the great work of Hardware Unboxed. You can find them on YouTube. So they always do an average game. So we can look at individual games, but because it's so different, we also like the aggregated 17 game. This is a game average. So here what we can see is that 1080p. It's not really what the 5080 or the 5090 are designed for, but they included.
Unless you want to run like an extremely high refresh rate monitor.
Yeah, true. But I mean,
usually the games where you benefit from it, you can easily reach those.
Exactly.
Those are like the esports title.
But as you can see there, 5090 is there at 204, but you're really looking at some CPU bottlenecking there as well, probably at some point, in some games at least, not all.
Well, at this resolution and these cards, I think you're basically benchmarking the CPU here.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's also why the 4080 or the 4090 and the 5090 are basically within margin of error from each other.
Exactly, yeah. They're so close to each other that really it comes down to other things.
I believe they tested with 9800 X3D, I think.
Oh, I don't know for sure. But yeah, you can find all those details on the website. I'm not sure if they already updated the specs indeed recently and then retested everything, because that's a lot of work. So.
In fact, Tom is asking what I'm drinking. I'm not drinking coffee. I'm drinking hot chocolate, and it tastes like
Same
chocolate.
Here, but I included some espresso.
Oh, you made a mix.
No, it's actually on the machine. You can
really. Did you make a custom profile for it?
No,
it wasn't there by default.
Yeah. And it came in mugs
you didn't
as
flash
well.
any Peter limited BIOS in there?
No. It came in mug size as well, which I like,
nice.
so I don't have to do it twice. Anyway, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
All right, so yeah, I mean 1080p. We did want to include the data, but it's not that relevant for these cards, I would say. We also have the data for the ray tracing, which Hardware Unboxed makes. So there it becomes a little bit more detailed already, because the ray
then
tracing
you actually start benchmarking the GPU instead of the CPU.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. So it's a bit more challenging, and there you can see that the 5080, it's a bit faster than the 4080 Super of previous generation. And the 4080 as well below that. So there's a little bit of a step up. It's not a huge step comparatively. And the 5090, as you can see, is way above everything else. This is, by the way, just to be clear, also without any kind of DLSS. So this is not with using any kind of frame generation. This is just ray tracing and set to quality upscaling in either DLSS or I would assume for the for the AMD cards using FSR, also quality upscaling setting.
I think
I assume.
Keith's already mentioned before, and that was a good point. The gap between the 5080 and 5090 is actually relatively big when you compare it to the previous generation. So of course, from a 4080 or even 4080 Super, you had a bit of a step up to a 4090. But definitely with the 5090, the step became bigger. So there's a bigger gap between the 80 and the 90 model than we saw in the previous generation. That's definitely true.
Yes, yeah. That's very true indeed. Then moving to QHD or 4040p, I mean you start to see a little bit more of a gap. So you can see that the 5080 is making a bit of a gap towards the 4080 Super and the 4080 as well. 5090 still miles ahead, obviously, which is what you'd expect. It's the top end, and the gap is very, very big. But yeah, comfortably above or towards 150 FPS on average. Again, it really differs per game, and there's a lot of games in this comparison. So yeah, if you want to know all of them, again, they are specified in the video from Hardware Unboxed, so there you can find all the games that they tested. Yeah.
Also the setup that they used. I see some questions about the setup.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, again, it's not our data. I just want to be clear about that. We wanted to show the independent media data because again, they do their own testing. It's more real world scenario. So we like to show that data because we as consumers would also look at this usually as more of our like a benchmark, let's say, and
or you just grab a few cards and test it in the office.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish I had the time for that, but I don't. So anyway.
I saw a good question. Abdul is asking, benefit of 32 gigabytes of VRAM in gaming?
Not that much yet.
At this
least
point,
not in many games. I mean, the VRAM usage has gone up, obviously, and there are some outliers always.
It also depends on how you play it. What resolution do you use? What kind of settings do you use? Do you want to use ray tracing or not? And also, how well is the game optimized? That's also a big factor in this. Well-optimized games tend to use less VRAM than better.
And we've also seen at the launch of the 5th series that NVIDIA has been working on something that reduces slightly for now, but is reducing the VRAM usage as well. So I mean, it's a dynamic thing, I would say. So the benefit at the moment, really, the 5090, it's a beast of a card. But especially the amount of memory that's in there, the biggest benefit of that is for content creators, I would say, not so much for gamers.
At least not at this point.
The raw GPU performance that it has, that definitely does benefit gamers, as you'll see in these benchmarks.
And content creators, both of them.
Exactly, yeah, but gamers as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to the data, so this is the ray tracing benchmarks 6-game average at 4040p. So here you can also see that the 5080 is a bit faster than the 4080 Super, and a little bit more even than the original 4080. So comfortably at around average FPS of about 100, so that's not bad, especially when not even factoring in any kind of DLSS or frame generation yet. And 5090, as you can see, I mean, that's much higher. So yeah, there's a huge gap there still. Then 4K, and this is really kind of the segment where I think these cards.
This is where you would buy a 5090 for. Basically.
Exactly, and probably also a 5080 to be honest, because 80 is also still quite a high segment in terms of the graphics card lineup. So here you can see that it's still over 90 FPS on average, which is nice. And here the gap with the likes of the 4080 Super starts to become a little bit bigger, of course. So you really start to see, the increased efficiency a little bit and performance that the 50 series outputs compared to the 40 series. And 5090, I mean, that's still miles ahead. And especially when it comes to 4K, the gap becomes bigger.
Peter C is asking in YouTube chat, would an MSI 5080 be a major upgrade over my MSI 3090? Well, actually, I think the 3090 is included in the benchmark, or at least the previous one you had. Yeah.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
So here you see, it all depends on the resolution.
We have to say, indeed, it depends on resolution and what types of games. But in general, this is indeed the data based on just rasterization performance.
So basically, the higher the resolution, the bigger the difference would be.
Yes.
And here you see the 3090. Yeah. It's at 64 FPS on average.
It's about a 50% boost, I would say.
Yeah, you go to
91.
Yeah, 91.
So it's
almost
like roughly
half
on top of it, let's say, or 150. I don't know how that works. Like it's 50% extra, so you get like 150% of the performance that you had.
Over 3090. When that is your baseline, then yes.
Exactly. So anyway, but
the 3090 is like 66% approximately.
True. And I mean, don't underestimate the benefits, the other benefits, because the 30 series, they have DLSS, of course, and they have some frame generation, but they can't use multiple frame generation. If you want to use that, you get that as a benefit on the 50 series, and also the 50 series. I'm still expecting kind of what we saw in every generation, that the generation as it goes on, NVIDIA will optimize more and more for it. And some of the previous generation can also benefit from that. I think that was also kind of already mentioned by NVIDIA as well, that some of the multiple frame generation can be used by 40 series, I think at some point, not yet. But anyway, I expect that, especially if you buy into a new generation, you also get the benefit of any kind of incremental upgrades and efficiency gains that are being made while this generation is going, let's say. And that will, I mean, traditionally, that's like at least 2 years. So for the coming 2 years, you will benefit from all the small gains that NVIDIA will manage to make, and you can bet that they are working on that, and because they always do. So.
I see another comment, show the Vanguard card. Here you go, there it is. Abdul is asking, 5090 has bad efficiency, is that a problem or not? Actually, the 5090 doesn't really have bad efficiency, but we have more detailed numbers later about the efficiency.
It really depends on what you mean by bad efficiency.
Yeah. But if you mean like performance per watt, which is usually...
What?
Per watt?
Per what?
Per watt. That's usually how at least I would define the efficiency of a card. So how many FPS do you get for each watt you put inside the card? Yeah. There is actually pretty impressive. And it actually does well. But we have
It's at least on par with the 40 series, which is not a surprise because, for those of you who don't know, this is the same process, the same process, the TSMC 4N, I think it was called, or 4 nanometer process, as the 40 series. So it's not that it's a new process and it's smaller again, because that's where usually the big efficiency gains come from, is if you move to a smaller process, and so you can do more in a smaller area, let's say. And so
I saw people already joking about a 4090 Ti rather than a 5090, but the gap is quite big.
It is, yeah.
Probably because it's the same production process.
Yeah.
But it is still a relatively big step.
But it's also a really big die, right?
Yeah.
In comparison to the 40 series. So what they did is they really increased the die size to be able to accommodate this increase in performance.
4090 was already a big die.
Exactly, but apart from obviously adding a lot of other good stuff and making a step up in terms of memory from GDDR6X to DDR7. So all of these things working together provide more performance. Ray tracing on 4K, as you can see there, also the gap becomes a bit bigger because also the new ray tracing cores. And again, like, they are new, the hardware is there, But I think going forward, NVIDIA will still optimize and we will see bigger gains. Let's put it like that. I expect that.
I think this overview is a pretty good example as why I don't see this as a 4090 Ti, because the average FPS of a 5090 or the 1% lows of a 5090 are higher than the average FPS on a 4090 in 4K with ray tracing. So that's actually quite impressive, I would say, generation on generation.
Right, so next one. So yeah, this is one of the things we wanted to include as well. This is from the 5090, by the way, but we'll also have some comparison from the 5080. So these are some reviews, stack-ups from Tech Power Up. They usually are able to review multiple graphics cards from different vendors at the same time and do limited, at least, comparisons. And this is when it comes to the cooler performance. So this is about the Supreme that I have in front of me, actually. So this is a 5090 Supreme card, and you can see that the cooler performance there is really, really good. So compared to only the Supreme Liquid, which is a liquid cooling, so that's kind of a league of its own, and it should be. This card, in terms of air cooling card, is the best one in terms of efficiency that they've tested. And as you can see at the bottom there's the Founders Edition, which, I mean, to be fair, it's way smaller. But they did make, everybody saw the video from Gamers Nexus where they had Malcolm from NVIDIA explain and it is really impressive, and it still is impressive what they've managed to do.
Because that one is only a dual slot card.
Exactly, so
it is
but still,
smaller size.
Compared to our Supreme card, which is way bigger, way heavier, but still also way more efficient and, or at least... maybe efficient is not the right word, but in the end, it delivers more cooling and it does so quieter.
That's why I like these kind of tests, because they normalize it at a certain noise level.
Case, and power usage. Exactly. So
indeed.
it levels
you can
the
really see
field.
how well the cooler performs, because basically the variables in terms of noise and power consumption are the same. So there you really see how the cooler.
Yeah, you level the playing field. You eliminate things like variations, like indeed, well, how much noise is it making and how much, because there's always like it's cooler, but it makes more noise or stuff like that.
Of course, every vendor also makes their own fan curve, for example. Some are more aggressive with it, some more conservative, and it's always a very subjective thing what is best, which is also one of the reasons why we have two BIOSes on it.
Exactly.
A gaming BIOS and a silent BIOS.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, but indeed.
And by normalizing it like this, you don't see those choices in it. You really see how the physical cooler, the hardware performs.
Yes, objectively, let's say. And it could still be different indeed, depending on your out-of-the-box experience, because if the vendor in question has a very aggressive fan profile, then what you will see is indeed out of the box, you put it in your PC and suddenly you think it's really loud. That's very possible, and in our case, I think every card that we have that has the dual BIOS is by default in the box set to the silent mode. So your experience should be the silent one at first, and you can always select the more aggressive one, let's say, and even that one is pretty damn silent, as we'll see in a minute. But we think most people prefer the silent approach, where you don't really hear the
silent
fans.
Treatment.
The silent treatment, indeed, the silent sensation. Anyway, but whereas in terms of performance, there is a bit of a difference, but unless you're really looking for it, you probably won't notice it, because the base level of performance is already so freaking high. Okay, so on the right side there, you can see which they also measured the memory temperature. So specifically on the left side, that's the GPU temperature. And GPU obviously is quite important, but the memory is also important. And there also it does a really good job, actually even better than the liquid-cooled one, which is surprising to me. But, it's quite close, but there as well, you can see that the memory is kept very, very cool, especially compared to the NVIDIA Founders Edition, which goes up to over 95 degrees, whereas our card keeps it at, about 67, so that's quite a big difference there.
Ice Fixin says, so the number of fans is determining the temperature for low dBA. Yes and no.
Yeah, it can, but not necessarily.
Indeed.
It really depends on how it's executed.
It also depends on the size of the fan, the quality of the fan, the RPM of the fan, how fast does it spin. So there are multiple variables that all have an effect on the noise level and the cooling performance.
Yep.
But in theory, yes, more fans at a lower RPM, in theory, give you the same cooling performance at a lower noise level than with fewer
basically,
fans.
the easier, if you're talking about graphics cards, the easiest thing I could advise you is go look at some of these reviews, especially Tech Power Up, because they do a like-for-like comparison between vendors as well. So if you really want to know, okay, which one is the more silent card of all of them, probably that's your best bet. So
yeah, because the one 3-fan card can perform different than another 3-fan card.
Yes.
And certain dual fan cards can even outperform certain triple fan cards. So definitely
really
compare the different ones and see
then
what fits your needs, also in terms of size.
Just indeed look at what you're looking for.
And like Skeets also mentioned, size of the heatsink matters too. Yeah, definitely. Size, thickness, how many heat pipes are in there, how thick the heat pipes are. There's so many variables that make up a cooler.
All right, so moving on then to the 5080 reviews that these came online just earlier today. If you want to have a look at the more detailed reviews, you can go to Tech Power Up. They're all on there. But we included 2 different ones here. So they also reviewed our Vanguard, which is on the table in front of us. And
there it is.
Yeah, and that cooler performance of the Vanguard, as you can see, it was actually the best of the bunch. So when we said earlier this year that the Vanguard was really a flashy little brother, not even little brother, of the Supreme, we're not kidding. It's about as good, if not at the same level as the Supreme. And here you can see actually, I mean, there's a 1 degree, just less than a 1 degree difference between them, so it's very close. But it actually beat the Supreme out in by a very small margin.
In the GPU temperature.
In the GPU
memory,
temperature. In the memory,
right?
exactly. The Supreme is better by 1.5 degrees or something like that. So again, not a huge difference.
But conclusion, they're very close.
And they're very good because, as you can see, compared to all of the other graphics cards they were tested against from competitors, basically they're at the top. So that means that, basically our coolers that they tested on the Vanguard and the Supreme are your best choice if you want to have the best coolers. And as you can see, I mean, the list was longer, I believe, but actually maybe not. But the FE card there, I think also that those are smaller, so it's not that surprising that those comparatively perform, the worst, let's say, if you want to call it that. It's still quite impressive compared to the size that they are. It's not really a fair comparison like for like. But the other, the cards from the other vendors, basically, they're all also, bigger cards, let's say 3-fan solutions or more in some cases. So those are a bit more like for like comparison, I would say. But just to give you an idea.
VR Chill Racing in capital letters says 4090 is better than 5080. In raw performance, yes, that is correct.
Yeah. But don't forget the 4090 was also a friggin' beast of a card, and it's a 90 series card, whereas the 80 series is 80 series cards, and we have seen generations where the new generation 80 series card beats out the 90 series card. Yes, but in this case, no. So do with that information what you will. Right then. Here's a temperature and noise comparison also from Tech Power Up. So they also always do like a standardized, this is like out of the box setting, so not normalized for anything, but basically just how does it perform while running it. On the left side is the idle temperature. That's not that interesting, at least not to me, because there, nothing much is really happening, and the fans these days all stop. What we used to call zero frozzer, where the fans stop under a certain temperature. Everybody's doing that now. So that's pretty much all the same. Where it gets interesting is the gaming performance. So that's on the right side. And there I actually organized it basically based on the noise level. And there you can see for the 5090 again, our Supreme SoC. SoC stands for Super Overclock, or Super OC. And that one, the top one actually is the silent BIOS. So this is where we come into a little bit the BIOS settings as well. And as
so
you see
this
there,
is not just raw cooling performance anymore, but this includes the fan curve, for example.
Yes, and this is, well...
And the BIOS.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Fan curve is part of the BIOS.
Exactly, yeah. And so out of the box, that's the top one that you can see there.
Yeah.
So that's what you would get out of the box. That's what it's set to by default.
Yeah.
And so that's, you get, less than 30 dBA. It's the only card to go below 30 decibels, so that's quite impressive, and it's really silent. You probably won't hear it. And you can also see the fan RPM there is the lowest of the bunch, so that means that the fans are spinning the slowest out of all of them. Below that there is the Supreme Liquid OC, both in the quiet setting and in the performance BIOS. That's not surprising. I mean, liquid coolings tend to make a little bit of extra noise because of the pump. And also they have
the static pressure of the fans on the radiator.
Exactly. yeah. So, but still, it's really, really silent. And then
the GPU temperature there is really impressive.
It is, yeah. And then after that, the Supreme OC, Super OC actually, with the performance BIOS. So that's the gaming BIOS as we call it. That's the next one up. So as you can see, even in our performance BIOS, it's more silent than any other card, quiet BIOS or no. So that's also really impressive, I would say.
Yeah. Also saw a comment from Skeets. These coolers rival water blocks. Yes, of course they are very big air coolers. That is something to keep in mind. And for water blocks, it also depends on what kind of, if you run a custom loop, what you use as a radiator pump, etc. But yes, these can come very close to liquid cool cars.
And don't forget that I don't know, you could make the argument that vapor chambers are maybe hybrid liquid cooling as well, or would that be, I mean, to a degree, right? So
a bit far-fetched, but kinda, yeah.
Anyway, but I mean, so yeah, it's also the vapor chambers. Obviously, once those made an appearance 1 or 2 generations ago, that also made a huge difference. And I think even with each generation, they get more optimized, they get better, they get more efficient. So yeah, this is very impressive what we're seeing. But also using, I mean, it's not just from 1 or 2 things. It's also it's the whole package combined. So also the fact that we're using different thermal pads between the GPU and the cooling itself and things like that. So it's everything combined.
Ice Fixin is asking gaming, as in how much percent of the card is being used? 90%. I don't know what the exact load was here. I don't know what they tested it with exactly.
You can find that out at Tech Power Up. I think this is just them doing some of their gaming tests, let's say, and then at the same time they will measure these results, something like that, probably. Yeah. But yeah, that kind of detail you'd have to look it up, because again, this is not our data.
I don't know which games they tested or which resolution.
No. They will. They specify that in their reviews, of course. So yeah, please go there for those kind of details. I'm sure they will appreciate you heading over there as well, and we appreciate them for doing all this work and all this testing as well. Then going to the 5080 test, which appeared earlier today, and there as well, when we normalize, when we select for noise, you can see that the Supreme SoC is actually the most silent of the bunch, especially in the quiet setting. There, it doesn't really say it's the quiet BIOS, but it is the top setting. It's a bit weird because the other vendor cards, it does specify if it's a quiet BIOS or not. But yeah, and then the temperature still is really, really low as well. So 62 degrees and 60 degrees for the GPU itself. I mean, it's really low, and that's the silent setting. So actually, we probably, looking at that, we probably could have gone a bit more aggressive with the silent setting and even turned the fans down more. We could have afforded it in terms of temperature, easily.
But still, it's super quiet. And what's interesting about this one is that you also see that, in theory, a lower RPM leads to lower noise output when you use the same fan. But here you also see that the fan quality and the blades come into play. So we don't necessarily need to have the lowest RPM to get the lowest noise output, because it's the full package.
It's also the design of the whole, the heatsink and basically the whole card. So indeed. And there you can see, even in the performance BIOS, or what we call the gaming BIOS, that's the fourth one down being highlighted. It's basically in between all the quiet BIOS settings of competitors. So that one is still, you could consider very, very quiet. So it's nowhere near the performance BIOS settings from all the other vendors, let's say. So also they're quite impressive. Vanguard, we didn't highlight here, but it's also at the quiet BIOS in the top 3. As you can see, it's the 3rd one down, so also there very, very silent. The performance BIOS is slightly, I don't even want to call it louder, but it's a bit further down the list, which is at 35 decibels. Still quite good, and temperatures are also like 60, 62, so they're also, I mean, you see some temperatures going up to in the 70s, which is also still fine. I mean, these GPUs, I don't know by heart. I looked it up earlier today, but I think they can go into the 80s or something like that, near 90 degrees, something like that. That's fine. Yeah. So I mean, you know, even in the 70s, that's actually, you still have a lot of thermal headroom. I remember the days when out of the box these GPUs would get to 80 degrees or something, and people would be like, oh, should I be worried? They're like, nah, that's still fine, you know? And these days you're like in the 60s, and there will be some people going, that sounds pretty hot.
Especially like people who are building their own PCs. Because in notebooks it has been the standard for longer. Of course, you have limited cooling capacity, and they already went in the 80s, 90s for longer.
But
also people who came from a home-built desktop PC and went to a notebook usually got a bit scared when they saw those kind of temperatures. But yeah, they can resist quite a bit of temperature.
And also on a notebook, you have to remember that usually some parts of the notebook are quite close to those chips, which means that if they get really hot, you will probably feel it either on the keyboard or somewhere on the laptop. So I mean, it becomes a bit more.
Or when you have a cold soda, or at least that was cold, and you put it behind your notebook in the wrong position.
Don't put it near one of the exhaust fans. No, you don't want to do that. Indeed. It becomes a really nice hot soda. Indeed. All right. For EU3N is asking, what about the VRM and memory temperature? They aren't mentioned anywhere.
The memory temperature is actually also in
the memory temperature is mentioned here indeed, and VRM indeed they didn't measure in these in this review. So I don't know. I don't think they're a problem. They're also being cooled. We also there you can check out one of our previous live streams where we did have, I think it was the beginning of January, right? Yeah, we did have one of the coolers, so we showed there, we weren't able and allowed to show you a PCB, but you could kind of make out from the patterns on the cooler that also the VRMs and all the components of the power delivery system, they were also being cooled by the heatsink. So
they also have thermal pads in between the power stages to the cooler, etc.
So you can really, you could think that they probably also don't reach that high of a temperature. Anyway, so that's pretty nice. Then also the cooler performance here, normalized. I feel like, wait, did we already see this one?
No, we saw the 5090, I think. Not the 5080, right?
Oh, okay. Are you sure? Wait, no, we did.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Oh, we get to see it again.
Yeah, apparently. They also did some overclocking on the 5080. And there I picked this one because it did highlight that I think a lot of people didn't expect that, but there seems to be more overclocking room than in previous generations, at least on the 5080. So that's a nice surprise because, I mean, for a lot of generations previously, indeed, we kind of saw that overclocking was, I mean, I want to say it's dead or something. It's not really dead, of course, but you, as a DIY, somebody doing it at home without extreme measures and stuff like that, just on the regular card doing some overclocking. In the old days, and I say old days, like 700 series, 900 series, something like that, you could get pretty impressive results in performance with overclocking. But in previous generations, things like GPU boost and stuff like that on NVIDIA, they were becoming so good that actually they already dynamically boosted the performance as much as they could, depending on thermal headroom and power budget and stuff like that. So they would kind of already overclock for you as much as they could out of the box.
They almost maxed out the performance already.
Pretty
so
much. So you could
yeah.
get something out of it, but it usually wasn't that much anymore. So for most people, it kind of wasn't worth the effort, and they, it kind of lost its shine for a lot of people, as like gaining free performance at least. But yeah, here you can see that by overclocking, you can get 11, 12%, and when you go to the max power setting, a little bit more even than that. of course, with overclocking, it's like with everything, it's like a diminishing law of returns, let's say. So, at some point, it's not a linear scale where the more power you put in, you get equally more performance out of it. It's really, again, a diminishing return. So the amount of performance you get per actual wattage, let's say, drops drastically the further you go.
Yeah. But you can also undervolt it. That actually ties into a question I see in chat. Overclocking also possible for small form factor. Is there a plan to build an MSI small form factor ready card? Well, for small form factor, it all depends on how small do you want to go. Because one ITX case is a lot bigger than another ITX case. And
not just that, but I just want to, sorry to interrupt you there, Mike. Technically, most of these cards and a lot of these cards are NVIDIA SFF or small form factor certified, let's say. So they fall within the measurements of what NVIDIA calls small form factor. But
those are pretty big.
Exactly. That's
like
still,
in my case, they wouldn't fit.
No, indeed.
But for example, like one of the popular cases from Cooler Mass, like the NR200P, those can fit relatively big cards.
Yep.
And then, yes, you could do overclocking there. But also on the other end of the spectrum, if you want to go smaller, you could also do undervolting instead of overclocking and still maintain performance while lowering power consumption and heat output. So that's also a possibility.
I thought I saw a video from their Bauer, I think. He's usually one of the people who looks into undervolting as well. I think he saw indeed that you could, like with last generation as well, you could like have on a 4090 or something like that, like 20% less power for only at the expense of like 5 or 4% performance. So usually on the high-end cards, they are pushed quite high up the power efficiency curve anyway. So
they're like over their efficiency sweet spot basically, and by fiddling around with it, you can try to get it on that.
You lose some performance, but the amount of power you save and also the temperature gets a lot lower, so there's multiple benefits to that. Is at the expense of relatively, at least, very little performance. But again, that's all up to you, and that's one of the fun things you can still play around with, of course, when you buy one of these cards. Anyway,
Gecko Geek Tech says 5090 is smaller than 4090, so maybe. With the NVIDIA Founders Edition, yes.
Yes.
With our cards, they're not smaller because also the power budget of the 5090 is also higher than the 4090. Later on, we'll also demonstrate that. That's quite a bit indeed. So we will run some firmware where you basically stress the card to 100% load. And there you will see the difference in power consumption between the 5090 and 4090. Of course, you get more performance back for it as well, but they can consume more power than a 4090. Yes.
Right. Then also, well, talking about power, we also saw Igor's lab also usually does a really good job of very detailed reviews, also when it comes to things like power
very extensive
consumption.
Power testing.
Exactly. And I added something there to kind of clarify that this is without DLSS enabled, so it's not any kind of frame generation. So this is just the normal power usage that he saw during gaming at 4K. Or 2160p as he puts there. So as you can see there, comparatively, obviously 5090, it's the highest power draw. So you see 500, above 500 watts. It can go up to 600 according to the specs. During gaming, usually you don't see the highest numbers. So usually you see that with either synthetic benchmarking or specific benchmarking like Furmark, which is targeted at seeing how much power it can draw and how much the thermal output will be in the worst case scenario. So that's the goal of things like Furmark.
Torture testing.
That's indeed, a good name. Good name for that. It really is torture testing. But really interesting there as well is he made a chart, and I think we alluded to that earlier, is like, is it bad efficiency, yes or no? Well, here what he did is he compared the average watts that the card consumes compared to the output in terms of frames per second. And this is again at 4K and also no DLSS, because if you were to enable things like frame generation, that would skew the chart quite a bit. So just to specify that, this is just normal render performance, no DLSS enabled as far as I could tell in his review.
Just rasterization.
Exactly. So like for like comparison, even with the AMD cards that you see below that. And that might be surprising to some, because as you can see, the efficiency is actually very, very good compared to the performance that it outputs, right? So yeah.
So still in total power consumption,
yes,
it is relatively high.
Yes.
But if you then look at the performance you get back for it,
exactly.
so basically for each watt you put in it, you get 4.8 FPS. Or wait, do I say it the right way around? No. For each FPS, it consumes 4.8 watts of power.
Yeah, I think that sounds more realistic indeed, especially at 4K.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So for 100 FPS, it would consume 480 watts. For example.
Yeah. But again, you can you can look at it differently. I thought this one was at least interesting because it just at least puts things in a different perspective. That depends on how you can look at it. But yeah, because if you look at cost performance, for example, you get a completely different picture. Because then maybe those AMD cards are quite impressive, sure. But when it comes to power efficiency, that's really where you can see this 4 nanometer, the process and the Blackwell architecture. That really helps to push these cards and be very, very efficient. Objectively. And whether you think that's efficient or not and acceptable in terms of the power usage, that's up to you. So really, that's a personal choice, personal decision.
And also, usually when a new generation comes out, you see that the previous generation tends to get a little bit more affordable.
Yeah.
So maybe if you can get a good deal on a 40 series, if you look at price to performance,
depends on availability, maybe second-hand market.
Really depends. Interesting one.
We also he also had a really nice analysis that I didn't really see before. And this looks a bit weird because we just mentioned and he just showed that the 5090 had, he saw about a 510, 520 watt power draw during his testing. But here suddenly, and this is the Founders Edition, he sees power spikes, so these are peak power analysis, up to and over 900 watts. So that sounds like, wait a minute, that's way more than what he mentioned. And to clarify this, we don't know all the details, but how he clarifies this is, power is a very spiky thing, let's say. So it's not a constant, it's not
a flat line.
No, not a flat line. It's really up and down. And you will see that in the next slide. But he also says there on the left, you can see that the shorter the measurements are of how short the measurement is from where he can see the spikes and the values. The shorter it is, the higher the spikes, and probably also the lower, conversely, right? So if the extremes get bigger. Because if you have a bigger delay between them, it will take the average. So it will average it out instead of looking at, what is the absolute max value that I saw. So this is what I thought was really interesting, because it shows you also one of the reasons why NVIDIA says 1000 watt power supply. Because your power supply needs to be able to handle spikes of way higher than what the average is.
This needs a little bit of nuance though, because for example, this is a 5090, so our recommendation is a 1000 watt power supply.
At least.
If your CPU, for example, consumes 150 watts. If you add those 900 watts, you would go over it.
Yes.
But for example, our latest power supply generation, they also support for the GPU up to 3 times the power excursion. So they basically they have a mechanism that those spikes, that they can basically catch those spikes. So you don't necessarily need to go to a 1600 watt power supply to make sure you can run this.
And when you say 3 times, do you mean it's 3 times, 3 strikes and you're out? It can go over it 3 times and then...
3 times the rate of wattage,
right, okay. Just to clarify that.
So if you have a 600 watts power connector, it could handle spikes up to 1800 watts.
There you go. No, that's quite
You
impressive.
won't reach that with these kind of cards.
Not unless you do something seriously wrong.
Indeed. But that's the power excursion.
Right.
So
and those should be very short spikes. So
you see it here. Those are less than 1 millisecond.
Well, I want to illustrate that here as well, because this is what I mean with spiky. So he did some tests, and this is in an interval of 2 minutes, I think. Something 2 minutes measuring, it says there. 20, and this is 20 millisecond interval. So this is not even using the 1 millisecond where he saw
that is
900
very
watts.
Detailed,
Indeed. So there you would, it would become one big mesh. You would need to have maybe a couple of seconds, otherwise you couldn't make out any of the peaks and valleys.
This is a very detailed test.
Exactly. But here you can see the average line, that's the white dotted line there. The white dotted line is the total. The blue, little bit of blue, what you see there is what comes in through the actual power supply, or at least through the direct, the 12 volt power connector that you plug in. And there's a little green line at the bottom, and that's the power it draws through the motherboard. So that's through the PCIe connector that you plug it into the motherboard, because it also draws power from that. But as you can see, that's very, very little compared to what it draws through the actual dedicated connector that you put in. But yeah, in total, you can see there are some spikes, and see if you can see my mouse, right? Yeah, you can see my mouse. So here's one spike, for example, which gets close to the 900 already. Yeah. But as you can see, it's very spiky, and there is some highs, but there's a lot of lows as well, because it dips. And this is, what is it, this during, I'm not sure if this is during gaming. Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077, there you go. So this is during gaming. So as you can see, it also has very low dips of nearly 100 watts. So it goes very low as well as very high. So this is the thing that most people don't really realize or know, which is normal because you don't really consider it and you don't measure it like people like Igor does. But that's why it's so valuable to get that kind of insight.
You also need specialized equipment in order to measure this. So later on we will also show you, for example, the power readings in Hardware Info 64. Yep. And there you will not see the spikes because it has a certain interval. I think it's about 1 second there.
So that's quite long. And it will just average it out, right?
Yeah,
so
and then you will basically see the flat line of the consumption.
Yeah, and then it looks like a nice flat, somewhere in the middle where it should be around. Well, here you can also see like 600 watts, something like that.
But if you zoom in, then you see...
Yeah. If you were to zoom in, indeed. So yeah, something we wanted to highlight there as well. Quite interesting. A lot of people don't know about. And here's the full lineup again. So from the left we have Supreme Liquid. Actually, did we have the card?
I see a question if Igor also made the measurements for the 5080. I'm not sure actually. What are you searching for?
Yeah, we had I think we had one of those cards here. Yeah, here it is.
The liquid.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I don't know if Igor also made them for the 5080, because 5080
probably
reviews just came out.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I did look at it, and I think
check his website.
He included them. So we actually have a 5080 Supreme Liquid here, as you can see, quite nice.
Separate radiator.
Yep.
360 millimeter radiator. So that's also. Quite a big one.
Yeah, and especially for a 5080, that should be way more than enough. So it's kind of overkill, but yeah, that gives you a lot of thermal headroom. And but it's a bit more of a compact card, especially the card itself compared to our air-cooled cards. Yeah. But yeah, you need to make sure you have the room for this radiator in your case. Otherwise, if you're also doing liquid cooling for your CPU. Then you'll probably also have like either a 280 or 360 radiator in there, probably. So yeah, you need to
make sure. Let me quickly open up the close-up cam, so maybe we can see it in a little bit more detail.
I mean, I really like this card as well because it's a bit more, let's say, of a clean design. So it's a bit more like business. It means business.
Hello, camera.
Camera, wake up. Wakey, wakey.
Interesting. It sees 2 instances.
Emmeline on YouTube is asking MSI Gaming, do you have the 5080 Shadow 3X? I see it on I see it on the MSI website. That's right. We do have indeed a model that's called the Shadow. But at the moment I can't give you too much information on it. All the information that we have is on the product page indeed, so you can see it on our website. From what I know, I don't have a sample on hand. I've not seen a physical sample of it, but from what I know, it's relatively close to and similar in concept to the Ventus card. But yeah, it has a different look, different design. But in terms of what you should expect, it's also it's close to kind of like a Ventus. So really focusing on the essentials. It's therefore also a bit thinner in terms of form factor, a bit lighter than things like Vanguard or gaming or Supreme. So yeah, different card, different concept. Let's see if this works.
There we go.
Yes.
So to compare this, here we have the Vanguard. Yeah, that's a bit of a size difference.
maybe. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, in terms of the Vanguard, things cars like a Vanguard and Supreme, they're much longer. Yep. Obviously, they have more of a heatsink in there. Supreme, Liquid also has a heatsink for cooling of the VRM components and I believe the VRAM as well, so the memory. And then the liquid cooling part obviously focuses on the GPU itself, which is under here.
But keep in mind that you also need to accommodate the 360mm
This beast indeed, yeah. So that one is quite sizable, but that's a good thing. Yes. All right, so quickly wanted to share that with you. Oh, can you put the chat?
Yes, I'll put the chat back up.
Cool. Okay. And then maybe we can go back to...
Shall we do a first giveaway?
We can. I don't...
Yeah.
Do you have it open?
I can open it up right here.
Yes. All right. Okay. So today, as pretty much always, you can win some Steam wallet codes. Always nice. You can do pretty much anything with them as long as it's on Steam. Yeah, if you want to participate, you can go to msi.com/2/insider or click on the Gleam link that's being shared every 5 minutes by one of our bots. And yeah. The more actions you perform, the better your chance of winning. It's a point tallying system, and then basically randomly winners will be drawn in the back end. And we have our first one. JP, congratulations! You won a Steam wallet code. So we'll send those out to you. If you don't know who JP is or you're unsure if you're that one, check your mail in 1 or 2 days, and you should have an email from us containing the Steam wallet code. And then you were the lucky JP. Yeah, exactly. If you don't see the code, you are the JP. Yeah, exactly. The one and only. Yes, yes. All right, going back to the lineup then. To the capture. Yes. Okay. So from left to right, yeah. So the Supreme Liquid, which we have on the table here, I wanted to show you quickly. Supreme, of course, which we also have here. That's our best air cooling card. Vanguard, which is quite close to it, as you could see in the reviews. So it really is pretty much next to the Supreme. Gaming Trio then, which is the trusted concept. You know, yeah. Very good, also really good performance. Then after that, Ventus, really focusing on the essentials, a bit more compact as well. So yeah, also a really good choice if you really don't mind and don't like the RGB stuff like that and all the fancy stuff. Ventus is really good for you. And Inspire, which is a new concept, really meant for more like AI focused and designer. So it's really, it has a different look to it, which is also quite nice. And also, if you want to build smaller form factor, then for example, Ventus or Inspire could be. Both of them, are a bit more compact. A bit more suitable for that. Yeah, kept a bit more compact for that reason. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think, for the slides. So let's now move into some bit more real life stuff, shall we? Shall we show us a little bit more of the Vanguard? Maybe show the lights. Yeah, because you mentioned it has some lights, but I haven't seen them yet. Last time we weren't able or allowed to show that. Maybe just toss this one aside. Maybe some space. So switch to. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. Yes. Cool. And I'll put this one back. I have a riser here, and I have a power supply, so we can show some lights on the Vanguard. And we'll see if we can turn down the lights. Yes. When we manage to connect it, because the Vanguard it has a bit different and a bit more RGB than Supreme. But we haven't been able to been allowed to show you that, regrettably. So we wanted to do that now, and we happen to be able to get our hands on one just in between reviews. If you're wondering what I'm doing, by the way, this is the power supply we had a live stream about last week. So that's the MEG AI 1600T. It's a 1600 watt power supply that we will now use just to power on some LEDs. Very efficient. I connected a riser cable to it to plug the graphics card in. And then we can show it to you. Yes. There we go. The Vanguard is a Supreme with bling. Well, yes, Alan, but to be fair, Supreme kind of has some bling to it as well, I would say, but it depends. It's just a different style, I would argue. Okay, I will give you the camera, and then I will switch. Sure. Yeah, you do the lights. Off some lights. And then we can, let's see. Yeah, that one. Yes, hopefully, yes. There we go. Okay. Okay. So as you can let me switch on the power supply. And there we see some lights. Oh,
we forgot something.
Oh.
Peeling time.
Yeah,
That's better.
Very, very appealing.
And also on the very end, it has some RGB illumination.
Yeah, that's new with this generation indeed. So we put some, like the Supreme also has like a logo on the end there. Oh no, it's not supposed to do that. Yeah. Anyway, okay, well we'll keep it like this. But as you can see, it has a bit more light shining through on different parts. Also on this bit of carbon texture there, so that's really nice. And then in between the fans, also here with the carbon texture, you can see it's really shining through that. But in terms of, it's blocked off. So if you look at it flush from the side, it's not direct light, let's say. So it's kind of, yeah, I don't want to call it ambient light or that short thing that's from another brand. Yeah, but anyway. So yeah, and it also, as you can see, it also lights up a little part of the, and that's pretty cool. You can see the waves in the heatsink as well there a little bit.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool with these lights. You
Yes.
can see it very well like that.
And then, let's see. Yeah, now from the other side. I mean, you can look at it from, like, you can see the lights from this side as well a little bit. And of course, they shine through the back. Wait, maybe it's, yeah, I don't want to flip the phone because then it's probably gonna, yeah.
By the way, riser not included. That's just
No,
for
indeed.
demonstration purposes.
Just for show, indeed. Yeah. But yeah, it's a different look, indeed. It's just a completely different outlook and new design. I really like it, I have to say. I'm partial to it.
Shall I put the lights back on?
Yes. Yeah, you can do that. Okay.
So our green screen works again.
And it's magic. Yes.
We're back.
That looks better. Ooh, that's bright.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
That's better.
Now we are so proud about some RGB light. Well, yes. I mean, it's the thing. Like, you want to just make it nice and have that option.
Static.
It's not the main. Yeah, we have a carpet here as well.
Yeah.
But we get quite a lot of static electricity. We can save a bit of power with that, I think.
There we go. Then let's make some space.
Yes. And then, indeed, we have something else that we want to do as well, because we thought it would be nice, you know, besides all of the benchmarks and then like the numbers that we showed you earlier, to do some actual real-life performance testing and comparison. So what we've done is we've got a setup here with the 5090, RTX 5090 Supreme.
And I've got a setup here.
Yes.
With a 4090 Supreme.
There we go. So there you can also see a little bit a difference, but it's, yeah, it looks somewhat similar.
Guide the cables a little bit.
Yeah. Let me help you with this. So yeah, we're going to go head to head in a little bit of testing.
There we go.
Yes.
Here you also see a bit of a size comparison, because now they're about equally far away from the camera.
Yeah, maybe we can go to the...
Yeah, if you go to the other side, you can show the good side.
Oh, also that, yes, true. And the mobile, no way.
There we go. And for more comparison, the Vanguard.
Exactly. This doesn't do it justice because of the angle.
This is just a 5080, by the way. The other, that one is 5090.
Yes.
This one is the 4090.
Yes. But yeah, you can see, I mean, it has definitely some similarities. It still looks like a Supreme from the previous generation, but it has a new upgraded look. And here you can also see, I mean, this is, yeah, this is the 4090 and this is the 5090.
Yeah.
So it's a bit, this one is a bit longer. I think we did a comparison in the previous live stream as well, where we physically held the cards together and you could see there was a slight difference between them.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of...
hey, don't show our great cable management there.
Oh, sorry. Great.
Fantastic cable management.
Yes. Right.
There we go. Let's see how they perform. We try to make two demonstration systems that are as close as we could get them.
Yeah, you can explain that a bit further.
Initially, we were testing with Ryzen 7 9800X3D, which is a very logical choice for these,
especially
these
gaming
GPUs. Yeah, very good gaming CPU. Yeah. Unfortunately, we had only one of them in the office. So what I did, because I did have a Core Ultra 265KF, and I noticed that my kid in one of his pre-builds had a 265K.
Yes.
And they basically perform identical. One has integrated graphics, the other one doesn't. But at least we could get a fair comparison between them.
So we're going to benchmark
so I stole it from his
integrated graphics versus 5090.
Yeah. Integrated graphics will easily win. Just kidding. So I stole his CPU sample, and we basically
I saw him in the chat, so don't mention it because now he knows.
Oops.
So if you're looking for that CPU, he didn't take it.
No. Wasn't me.
It wasn't Mike.
So I took two MAG Z890 Tomahawk Wi-Fi motherboards, and both of them are equipped with 32 gigabytes of DDR5 7200 CL38 memory. So basically they also both of them are equipped with
same settings.
MPGA 1000 GS PCIe 5 power supply that we talked about last year. Last week.
A few weeks before that, it would have been last year.
Almost. Why CL38? Well, this high frequency memory kit is a CL38 kit.
Yeah, it's what we happen to have on hand and what we have to. Because again, like for us, it wasn't as important to see what we weren't going for the fastest possible build. But
well, this is actually fast because it's 7200. On AMD, that is a little bit different because AMD you want to have it synced with your Infinity Fabric. So basically, you want to go up to 6000, 6200, maybe 6400 if you're lucky with your Infinity Fabric. With Intel, you can go a little bit higher in frequency. So we're running 7200 right now with the Core Ultra 7 CPUs.
But the goal for us here was really to see if we could get to
a fair comparison. That's the goal of the
pretty much as similar as possible in terms of systems, and then. The only difference, the real biggest difference being the graphics card. So we really get a like-for-like comparison.
So if people are wondering, why are you not testing with the 9800 X3D? Because we only had one.
Yes. Poor us.
Yep. Both CPUs are also cooled by an MEG Core Liquid S360 liquid cooler, so that's also identical. Yep. Both run a Gen 4 1 terabyte SSD. Just the graphics cards are different.
Pretty much, yeah. Right.
Let's first go to yours.
Okay. What do you want to show?
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with performance? Do you want to start with power?
Maybe performance is nice. Okay, so let me just close some things here because I was also doing the slides from this system, obviously. Just a little bit of a preface, or how do you want to call it, like a thing to mention here. I did update to the latest version of NVIDIA app, but I didn't, as you can see here, actually. Yeah, there you go. Update to the latest drivers, which actually came out like half an hour or something before the live stream started. And we kind of have a policy that we don't update drivers just before the live stream starts, because that means anything you tested before that is null and void. So you basically, it's a big risk that things stop working. So we still have like older drivers on there, just to be clear. So we, as you can see,
same for this one, by the way, for the 4090.
Yeah, what I have on here now is version. I'm not sure if you can see that. Let me just pull this aside here. Now you should be able to see that. So what I have installed is version 572.02, and the new version that's available today is .16. So it could be that your performance that you experience with the new drivers is slightly different than what we are seeing. But yeah, just for full transparency, I wanted to point that out, and I think for you the same thing applies.
Which one did you have?
02. So yeah, you have the same one.
I have the same one.
Yeah.
So
we do
my capture, by the way.
Yeah, so we are running the same
I'm not sure
drivers.
If you can see it. Right there it is.
Yeah, yeah. So this is what we had installed. Actually, our FAE. So thank you, Peter and Ruth, who are also usually sometimes on the stream here. They helped prepare the system for us and pre-install everything for us. So thank you for all the effort. Yeah, maybe just start off with some Cyberpunk, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. So just also here, what we have running is I have some hardware info running, just the sensors, so we can look at some of the stats at some point. But I also have Afterburner running with the nice new skin here, and that should provide us some nice data as we're in the game. So let me start up. Actually, I have two here. I'm actually three.
I will boot up the same stuff as you do, so we can.
Yeah, I have three versions of Cyberpunk.
You have three versions?
Yeah, man. Well, at least. Ignore.
I have a play button, so I assume that will be the.
Yeah. There's a good chance. Right, let me do that as well. Start up the game. The reason why we chose Cyberpunk out of all the games is because it also supports DLSS 4 with all the frame generation and stuff like that.
And the multi-frame generation.
Exactly. So that's why we thought it'd probably be more interesting, at least to showcase, because it has the possibility to do that. Other than that, we will try to show you, like for like comparison. So we'll start off with no DLSS, I think.
Can I lift my keyboard?
I wanted to maybe save that to the end, but yeah, not yet. We'll do that at the end. Save something for the end. It is.
More about that later.
It's something that was also displayed on CES, but we'll show that later indeed.
Sneak peek of the sound.
Yeah, it's nice and clicky. Right, so going into the settings, we can see it's full screen, 4K resolution, no maximum FPS set, things like VSync off, obviously, reflex low latency is on, and the rest, the graphics we are using as a preset. Actually, we had a preset selected. Ray tracing overdrive, I believe it is. Yeah, here we go.
So we're here, ray trace overdrive.
Yes.
I will match my settings to yours.
Yeah, and I think there, if we look at, okay, so I do have DLSS frame generation on. You don't, so let me.
Oh, you switch it off as well? Okay.
Yeah, texture quality is high. Okay, cool. DLSS reconstruction is on. This is just normal ray tracing, path tracing is on, yes, okay, cool, crowd density high, field of view 80, on, motion blur high, I hate it, but I mean for benchmarks, who cares? Contact shadows, everything like that, on 16 and anisotropy.
Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high.
Yeah.
And 1, 2, 3, 4 ultra. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high here.
Yeah, same here. So I'll apply
that. Very high.
Oh, so some settings will enter effect after the game has been restarted, so let me just restart it. Just to make sure that my settings have indeed been applied.
And then for the video part, VSync off of course, maximum FPS off, full screen mode, and Ultra HD / 4K resolution. Do you have NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency on?
Yes, it's on. Yeah. I see a random person on YouTube saying the 5080 Vanguard is still unreleased, it says on the website. Depends on which website. If it's our website, I wouldn't pay much attention to that, or as I mentioned earlier this live stream, currently everybody in Taiwan, our headquarters, is celebrating Lunar New Year, so the website is not being actively updated right now, but it will be soon. So it could be that what it says there is not actually, the most current information.
So Peter is rebooting the game to get identical settings to what I have?
Yeah, I just want to make sure it applies it, indeed. But I am wondering why it's not starting. Oh, here we go. Yes.
Mr. Masterdog says, I wish I was high, not ultra.
Or overdrive.
I think your game is running in the background.
Shah is saying something that I don't really understand. What about MSI Extended, MSI Specific, and Afterburner? I mean, you have a good reason to sell MSI card. It's Afterburner, it's user friendly, but Afterburner actually doesn't. It's not limited to MSI cards. You can use it with any card from any brand. So it's designed that way. It should work with pretty much. And also,
if you happen to
nvidia,
buy the wrong brand, you can
AMD,
still use Afterburner.
I have to say, I've never tested Afterburner on an Intel card, but I would guess that maybe it works on that as well, because it kind of, it's meant, but anyway.
Should try on our notebook.
Yeah, but I don't know for sure. It's MSI indeed, so we can do some features, but we don't want to make it exclusive to MSI. In the past, we had some exclusive features in there, but that was for Lightning cards, so that was really overclocking related. So yeah, we decided to keep it general and pretty much that anybody can benefit and can use the app. And the reason why it's MSI is because we sponsor or basically pay for its upkeep and development. But yeah, it's free to use for anybody on any graphics card, no matter which brand. Let's see. So just to see which graphic settings. Ooh, okay. So this seems to have. Maybe it's changed some settings. Can you check? Okay, transform. Okay, wait. So super resolution, transformer model.
Yes.
Ooh, super resolution on auto. That's dangerous because that means it can differ. What if we put it on DLAA? Yes. Okay. I think then that's kind of, yeah.
That will require a reboot, I guess.
Does it?
I think because it has the asterisk.
I don't know. Maybe just apply. No, it doesn't. I don't think. Yeah. Okay, frame generation off, texture quality high. I think the rest is still the same from what I can remember, so that should be.
The rest looks all good.
Yeah.
And your video is still at full screen.
Yeah. Let me check.
Ultra HD resolution. Yep.
Reflex on. Okay.
Looks like we're identical.
3, 2, 1. Go.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
You have the. Oh, you do it with the B.
Oh, okay, I can click it as well.
But you still have to confirm it as well, right?
Damn it, I don't know.
I think
Let's try it. 3, 2, 1.
See?
Confirm.
I beat you. Quick. Yeah, but you run a 5090, of course.
Not a fair comparison. Right. So let's see how that goes. Website is completely broken. Well, if that's the case, I didn't check it, but yeah, apologize for that. What's the price of a 50 of any? I mean, guys, I also want to highlight that there's no point really in asking us the price of any specific card.
For availability in a specific region.
We don't know. We know there's an MSRP. I don't know them by heart because there's no point, because for every country it will be different. It depends on
also MSRP is just a recommended price, but resellers can decide their own price.
Exactly, they are free. We're not even allowed to mandate the price to them. All we can do is make sure what price we charge, and then there's a lot of different factors that go into it. Indeed, the reseller can decide which price they want to take. They obviously need to earn some money as well to be able to live, and you have per country different VAT and taxes and stuff like that. You have, I mean, the US has now also mentioned like import taxes, so all of these things can and will influence pricing.
Mr. Masterdog says, what is the price? 2 times the price of your kidney. Well, luckily, most people have 2.
Yeah, so you can spare 1.
But then you just have half a card.
Wow. Anyway, here we can see, so this is really native rendering indeed, and you can see this is 4K as it shows there, and we have an average of 35-ish.
So no upscaling in this, no DLSS?
Indeed, yeah.
This is basically how hard you can make it.
Yeah, you can also see the number of frames, right? So I have 2244 and you have 1519, so that's quite a big difference. Minimum FPS for you, 21-ish, mine 30. It didn't drop below 30. Max just over 40, and yours didn't break 30. So a 4090 doesn't break 30 in this benchmark. Whew, that's rough.
Again, we're using almost the same CPU, Ultra 7 265K for Peter and KF for me, so I don't have integrated graphics, but we're not using them anyway.
No, it's not helping.
Same Windows 11 version.
Yeah. Yes, should be. Yeah, indeed, identical.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I have less memory. System memory is only 16 gig. I also saw that only one bar was on.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I only have 16 gigs of memory.
Hey, that's unfair.
I'm not sure if that still makes a difference or not.
I don't think in this game
it shouldn't.
It will.
No.
But you do lose your dual channel then. Why is there only one working? That's
I don't know. Probably we need to reseed it.
Maybe we can reboot your system and see if we can.
Okay. Sure.
If we can fix that.
Oh, let's RMA this sucker.
Yeah. I do know that you're using a very early engineering sample motherboard.
Ooh, that's always a risk.
Always.
We like to live dangerously. Wait, I need to exit the game.
While you do that, I can already do some firmware on my system.
You can, yes. Shut down. So let me just try and reseed it and see what it does, because it could be. I mean, we transported it over here, so it can always you know,
in the
during
rain
transport
with some protection. But
we did, yeah, true. All right, so before I do that, I'm gonna.
So now you're looking at my screen. So the 4090, not the 5090. This one is tracking the power that the GPU is drawing. So here you see that during the benchmark, it was about like 440 watts. Here it's back to idle. Now it's only drawing like 40 watts. I will do some firmware. Firmware basically runs the graphics card at 100% load. So this is a so-called torture test.
Or a power virus.
A power
it can
virus,
also be called, indeed. So the goal here is not to extract performance out of the card, but to
stress test this.
To pump as much power as you can into the card, like the absolute max, and then see what happens. So it's more a test of the cooling than it is performance.
Stability, yeah.
Yeah, or efficiency. It's not really about efficiency. This thing is screw efficiency. Let's throw all the power we can into it.
And you get to see a fluffy donut.
Yes, who doesn't like that? It's like a moldy donut. Lovely.
Let me pull up our info back, because now you basically see that it maxes out power, and it is around 480 watts.
Hey, now both of them light up, so that's a good sign.
Nice, good. Let's double check if your memory frequency is still okay after you boot it up. If your XMP is still on.
Should I boot into the BIOS first? Just to be sure?
Well, you can. We haven't changed it, so it should default back on. But check it in hardware info in the summary instead of the sensor summary.
Damn it.
So, hey. Where's my capture? Hello, capture. Hello, capture. Let me replug my HDMI.
Are you sure you selected your PC? Yeah, it should be. Yeah, it says 4090.
There we are again.
Hey, there we go.
Okay, my capture is back. It's still stress testing. As you can see, it stopped for a little bit when I unplugged my HDMI. Yeah. But now we're back on. So 480 watt approximately. This is the RTX 4090 Supreme on the gaming BIOS. Just for reference. Peter is also running the gaming BIOS, but then the RTX 5090.
Yeah. I was going to say, am I?
But yeah, you are. Yes. You are.
Yeah.
I checked that this is also the same.
I could hardly tell because I mean the switch is really.
It is
tiny.
A very small dip switch.
I mean the card gets bigger, but the switch never does.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so Peter is back live as well.
Yes.
Let's first check if your memory frequency is also okay. Doesn't matter for firmware, but for benchmarks later on.
Come on.
So we see if your frequency is correct, and if you get 32 gigs as well, like my system.
I can't do summary only, so.
Egg person says, any coil whine? Because I heard a few Founders Edition reviews complaining about it. Not that I'm hearing.
Not on these samples, indeed. I can't select summary only.
And then.
Okay. Where are we looking?
Yes, your frequency is too low. So you do need to reboot and switch your XMP
Damn
on.
it.
It reverted to to 4800, and you want to be at 7200.
Switch to your PC again then.
Yep.
Otherwise, not very entertaining.
Just for reference, I will also show the summary of mine. Oh, I was still running in the background. There we go. So sensors only off, summary on.
Guilty Crow 21 on Twitch is asking what's the giveaway. The giveaway is
Steam
wallet code.
Yep.
Indeed.
So here you see my system, and I'm running 7200 at CL38.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that one.
Jesus. Couldn't it just say BIOS? Enter BIOS? Anyway.
Yeah, and then use a memory,
Jesus.
switch on.
Where?
Yeah, new BIOS version.
Here?
No, there, memory.
Where? Oh,
That
yeah.
one, yeah. XMP1, yes.
Okay. And then exit.
Yeah. No, not discard.
What? Why you know discard? Save.
Yeah,
yes.
save.
All right,
Correct.
Cool. I haven't been messing around in BIOS for a while. I mean, this new BIOS indeed is different than the last.
You're lucky, because very soon we'll have a dedicated live stream about our new Click BIOS.
Especially for
X
me.
or 10, whatever you want to call it.
Especially for me.
So we'll do a whole walkthrough. Ruud will join that one. We will go through all the different features of this new BIOS, what we changed.
How long has it been since there was a new BIOS? Because I remember we had Click BIOS 5, and that was a long time.
It was a very long time.
We still had somebody who's currently working for MSI, back then working for MSI, who's now working for AMD, who was then working for MSI, who did that video.
Martijn, you probably know him.
Yeah. So
yeah, he did that
that's
video.
a long time
That's
ago.
a very long time ago.
I think I had just joined MSI or something, so that must be like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I
or
think
something
almost,
like that.
yeah. Close to.
Jesus. So that's how long.
And now with the 800 series, both Intel and AMD, end of last year, we introduced the new.
Nice.
Click
It looked nice indeed.
Okay, let's open up Hardware Info 64 again to
Just
see
to verify, yeah.
To see if your
man.
XMP is correct.
Summary.
And if we can see both your modules.
They're still lit up, so that should be hopefully good.
Now you're also at 3600
nice
frequency, and if you open this up, the drop-down menu, you should see two modules.
Yep.
Yes, there we
go.
This is your integrated graphics because you're running the case queue, but there is a second GPU. You also have a drop-down menu.
Yeah. Where?
Below the Intel logo.
Oh, here.
Yeah, there you
go. Ooh,
yeah, that's the MPU within the iGPU. Yeah, there you go.
5090. Yeah, boy.
This is, by the way, Peter's. Yeah.
There we go.
They couldn't see what you were doing, but yeah.
It's a good thing. I was just mucking
So
about.
here we can compare them, that they're basically identical systems. So let's go to our duo capture again. And it's my phone marks off.
Furry donut of death.
We need to reboot Hardware Info so we can again get the sensors on.
Yes, I will do that as well. Here you go. And I've got power indeed already opened up.
Yep, same here, GPU power. And let's run firmware at Ultra HD resolution. So
this?
No, change it to the. No, that's the benchmark.
Here?
Yeah, that one.
Right. Okay.
Put that one to Ultra HD.
Okay.
And then run. And you also get a moldy donut. There you go.
Lovely.
And then we can open up Hardware Info 64 again on the foreground.
Doesn't affect?
No, you can just. It's not benchmarking, so I will drag it a little bit upwards. So my system again is. Hey, it's lower than the previous time I ran it. That's interesting.
It became more efficient.
Here it did briefly draw 480.
Yeah. What if you click the donut again? Like have that in the foreground. Yeah, so on the top right, there you can see it's doing 480, 490.
Let me go back.
Hey, there you go. See?
Yeah, it is indeed.
So there is a bit of a difference.
Yeah.
I'm actually not running Afterburner.
But
so
last time I was actually running this on the foreground as well. And it was drawing 480. So I mean, it's interesting that it doesn't now.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that makes a difference. Here we go.
How much is yours drawing?
600.
So there you see a bit of a difference.
Just slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah. About 120.
120 watts.
Odd watts. Yeah. something like that. Actually, it's going
so that's actually interesting
over.
because people were talking about how the Founders Edition cooler on the 5090 is smaller than the 4080. It doesn't draw less power than a 4080.
No, it does not.
When I minimize this, where will it go? Yeah, it does indeed.
Drop. Ooh, quite a bit.
Now even more, yeah.
Oh, but you completely closed.
No, I didn't close it.
Oh, but it was minimized though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, interesting.
What happens to yours?
The nice thing is, you guys can't see this. Let's see if I can actually pull this up to the middle here. It even says Furmark GL, the evil GPU utility.
Yeah.
Self-knowledge.
If I drag it to the side but keep it over foreground, you can still see both. So here you see it running 480 watts.
Yeah.
And here you see that it basically flat lines also for you at 600 watts.
Let me...
So that is, for example, earlier we showed you the graph from Eagle's lab.
Yes.
But he did very detailed testing where you also saw, for exple, 20 millisecond intervals.
Spikes.
Or even less than 1 millisecond intervals.
Can we shorten the interval on hardware info?
I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
Let's see, what is this? Oh, that's actually just resetting everything.
And definitely not to the extent that Eagle is testing.
No, indeed. Oh, actually, your polling period. Global. That is indeed 1 second.
Well, what is the lowest you can do?
I don't know. Let me try 1 millisecond. Let's see if it'll do that. At least 20.
At least 20. Okay.
Okay, but 20 is still quite a bit different. So that could be interesting. Let's see what happens.
Let's see if you get some
spiky
graphs.
fellas.
I haven't tested it, by the way. So curious how it will.
It still seems to be just 1 second, like every second, not. And let's see if what happens here. Graphics card.
I'm not sure if the sensor can do that kind of interval.
Yeah,
so maybe you can
not.
set it in the software, but if the hardware cannot do it, then.
Yeah, it doesn't matter indeed. Let me see what it says here. Where's the core voltage? Here, wattage. So basically, even here, it displays like a maximum value that it's measuring and stuff like that. And even here, it's basically saying the maximum value it's seeing is 600, like 601. If I.
By the way, what's your GPU temperature?
I'm at is 66 and a half.
Okay.
66, something like that.
I'm at like 60, 61 and a half.
And I don't think I can actually hear it. I know that the fans are spinning. And I can feel a little bit of air.
I'm dropping now, of course, because I don't have it on the foreground again.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Let me put it back to the foreground, see what it does. So we're back to 480 watts.
Yeah, I will just put it to the foreground as well, just in case it makes a difference.
Now I'm at 64 and a half degrees, 64 around.
Yeah, so that's also really good cooling, obviously.
Yeah.
But this one,
still,
considering
that one is dissipating 120 watts more.
Yes, exactly.
So then it's still very close in terms of temperature.
It is, and let's make this a bit more interesting. Let's see if I have I can maybe raise the power limit on this one.
Can you go higher in this?
I don't know. Let's see. But I need to have voltage control. I need to then restart Afterburner. And then I haven't really used this skin. Where is it? Power limit. Oh, it's already at 100%.
Yeah, I think that's different for if you're in the silent BIOS. I think it would be 575.
Yes,
like the
correct.
Founders Edition. And I think when you switch it to the gaming BIOS, it will unlock up to 600.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, 600. It was already at the limit then. Yeah. So.
Shall we do some more benchmarks with some DLSS switched on?
Yes. Let's do that.
So let's start Cyberpunk again.
Exit the furry donut of death.
Yep. Make sure to exit that one because otherwise your frame rate won't be that good.
No, probably not.
Aman says, oh, they don't read chat. No, we don't.
No, definitely don't. No. You haven't noticed this isn't live. This is pre-recorded.
Yep.
That's why we're not.
We just knew you were going to say this.
Yeah, that's prediction. So kind of like DLSS interpolation, but then for the chat. Right?
Yeah.
Like AI.
Like psychic.
Yes. Oh, kind of like that. Depends. I mean, there's so many questions in the chat, but yeah. Sandra Former Lindheim is asking, I managed to buy the Gaming Trio OC today, but they're not replying to me on this live stream. we try to. Sorry if we didn't catch your earlier question. If they can show the product, no, we don't have it on hand here.
We don't have the gaming right here too.
No, unfortunately we don't have it. So
we have the Supreme and the Vanguard and the Supreme Liquid at the moment.
Pandorian Grey, see, you know us. You're such a regular viewer. You know that we're not live. Of course we know this is not live. 5090 Supreme doesn't exist. Well, it is kind of like a unicorn indeed. But
at the moment,
yeah. But again, this is with every generation. I haven't seen any stats on the 5090 Gaming Trio OC. I don't know. I mean,
I think in the upcoming weeks, more and more cards will be reviewed.
Yeah,
and
but
tested.
5090 also there. I mean, we don't send every single model out for review. We kind of have to select because also media. You know, here you used to work for media, right?
Yep.
What happens if every single vendor would send every single card, indeed, and every single edition of their graphics card to the media?
You have to make choices.
They just say no. I mean, first come, first served, and at some point they would just say, yeah, we're full, no more. So we have to make a selection, and what do we choose?
Usually, they start testing the top models, and then they will gradually add more models to.
Well, usually it's two things, right? So they will have either the top model or the MSRP, because that's in the past we've also seen that has been a major focus, because they want to see, okay, what can you actually get for the MSRP?
But also to compare it to the Founders Edition, it's usually interesting to test the top model to see what the difference is.
Exactly.
By the way, what settings are we gonna run? So we stick to
similar.
4K resolution. I think will make sense
obviously.
for this tier of graphics
90,
cards.
yes, definitely.
And maybe let's start with the DLSS with the single frame generation quality.
No,
that's
just
okay.
quality first, and that's like no frame generation, but just quality.
Okay.
Just adding DLSS.
We have to watch the clock though, if we can do all of it.
Yeah, no, we can do quickly just a few. Okay, so we only changed now DLSS super resolution to quality.
To quality and DLSS or frame generation still off.
Yes.
Okay. Then let's run benchmark.
Yeah.
And
confirm.
We have to 3, 2, 1 on the confirm button.
That's okay.
Let's see how they compare.
Did you guys send out many review samples? This is why your launch is late. Actually, we did send out quite a lot of review samples, and there were, I think, at least most of the big review websites had at least one of our cards reviewed as part of their. And some
even multiple.
Power Up, even they had
the Vanguard and the Supreme.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Liquid even.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, at least for the 5090.
For 5090, yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, so already seeing a big difference. I'm now at 62, so that's like before I was like between.
You're
30
getting
and
into
40.
the playable frame rates.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Me
60,
not so
70.
much.
You are still at like 40 something. Yeah. And I'm drawing, as you see, not even 600 watts.
i6 says interesting. It's only using 12 gigs of memory of VRAM.
Yeah.
Yeah, with DLSS that's usually a bit lower.
Yeah.
But still, not all cards in the market have this kind of VRAM.
No, indeed. And also, like, this is just in Cyberpunk, so different games will have different VRAM usage. It all depends on how how it's programmed. So we're nearing the end of the benchmark.
Okay.
All right.
So you're at 66. I'm at 44.
Yes. That's quite a big difference.
That's quite a leap. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's change some more settings.
Just double checking all our settings were the same.
I think so.
Yeah, looks like it. And now you have 32 gigs of memory?
Yes, yes, I do. Right, okay, then indeed, let's turn frame generation...
let's get back to settings.
Oops. Let's turn frame generation on.
Okay. To just the normal... Okay. DLSS frame generation?
Still DLSS on quality, and then frame generation is on.
Okay.
Ray reconstruction is on.
For the rest, I didn't change anything.
No, me neither, but I did click something else, but I think we're still okay. Yeah, I think the rest of the settings are still the same. Okay, cool.
Yeah?
3, 2, 1.
Oh, perfectly in sync.
Perfectly in sync. We should do like synced benchmarking sometime. We should meet up for sync benchmarking and beers.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah, especially the beers
especially
part.
The beers part, yeah.
Always good to have the full 32 gigs. I know. Yeah, but I mean, this is exactly what we mean when we say, you know, it's not like 32 gigs.
Oh, we have a difference. My sharpness is apparently on 50, and yours is on 0.
Oh, really? Sharpness.
Does sharpness have much performance impact?
Oh.
Well, good spot. Good spot.
Yeah, sharp. Yeah, I didn't really spot it. So I'm actually not seeing that much of a difference on my end, which is weird. Like I'm still at 63 FPS, so I'm wondering.
I'm very close to you. But
yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm wondering if.
Shall we abort it to make sure it's identical?
No, we can see it at the end of the benchmark. I mean, it won't take long anyway. But
according to GigaRAM, I made another mistake. I have AMD frame gen on, not NVIDIA.
No, well, I think I had. I was looking at that as well.
Okay.
I clicked on something a bit more. Your DLSS was set to AMD. Yeah, I know. I misclicked kind of somewhere. Anyway, we'll see it in the post benchmark analysis. Yeah.
So now we're finally in sync in terms of timing, and then we screwed up our settings.
Yeah. Yep. Right. Okay. Yeah, you have AMD.
I have the wrong one.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Yeah,
that's probably also where the sharpness difference came from. I would assume.
Maybe. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So at the top there, you need to there you go. Yeah. Okay. And so now we have frame generation on. Okay. No, you did it again.
I'm checking it's in. Oh, that's how it went to that one.
When you do frame generation.
Because I clicked too far. Okay. Because when I click further here, it automatically moves that one again.
I also did that because I wanted to see if it would say like multiple frame generation, which it didn't. Okay. Yep, now it's the same.
So back, quality, DLSS.
Yes.
With frame generation. Yes. Oh, I have to restart my game.
Oh my God. All right.
Let's do that.
Yes. Running out of time, Mike.
Yep.
Like maybe in the meantime, I can show
do another giveaway.
No, yeah, maybe also, but I kind of want to show something else that Mike is. So here's a bit of a sneak peek. You guys see this keyboard?
That's cute, right?
It is. It has a nice little screen there as well. So this is something that we also showed at CES. Yeah, at CES. So this is called, and you can see the product name right there, the Forge GK600 TKL wireless. And so, yeah, we have a sample on hand. Maybe we'll do a live stream about it at some point. We'll see. But yeah, this one also should be available soon. I'm sure I saw the web page was also already live, so that's why I'm confident I'm able and allowed to show this. But yeah, it's a nice little keyboard. Mechanical, hot, swappable switches, PBT keycaps. Yeah, really nice, satisfying feel and sound to it as well. And you can also see like another little thing there. I'm not sure, like a white mouse to match. So
Shaz says, I'm sure the keyboard isn't real too. It's AI generated, like those two guys.
Yeah, we are totally AI.
Everything is fake.
Totally. But yeah.
Fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay, we can go back to the. So I'm just waiting for the benchmark. We are in the matrix, indeed.
All the loading screens. Hey, I don't see my capture. Let me fix that.
I think maybe the HDMI connector has been abused too many times.
Probably.
All right.
Okay, settings. Okay. DLSS frame gen.
Wait, let me see. Okay, yeah. Super resolution, transformer model quality.
Double check.
Yep.
Video all still correct?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, still looks the same?
Yep.
Okay, run benchmark.
3, 2, 1. Clickety click.
Nice.
What is the Vanguard SoC Launch Edition? Good question, Egg Person on YouTube. So the Vanguard SoC Launch Edition is something that it's a limited edition and a limited number of products that we are selling. It comes in a bigger box. Most of the reviews of the Vanguard actually have that. So if you look up a review of the 5080 Vanguard, for example, you will see the Launch Edition. The Launch Edition, it includes a couple of niceties, some extras in the box, which we thought was nice to provide for basically to launch a completely new series into our lineup. And so it includes also a little lucky, doll, or what do you call it? One of those little lucky things. It's really nice. And
small figure.
Exactly, a small figurine. That's the word I was looking for.
And there is one with a beer.
There is one with a beer. Yeah,
I love that one.
So it's basically it's lucky around the world is the concept. So it basically represents different cultures and countries. And there's one in there which is kind of like a lucky, I would say. Like it's like a very exclusive version, and only very few in there. And it's we're not allowed to tell you what it looks like, or anyway. But anyway, so it's basically just with a little bit of extra in there. Oh, you're already done. What?
Yep.
That's weird. Your FPS is higher than mine.
I outperformed you.
How?
Well, I think at this point we're not really benchmarking the GPUs anymore, rather the CPUs, but still interesting.
Wait, you have frame generation, yes. I have frame generation, no.
I thought you switched on frame.
I did. I'm pretty sure. So maybe I also need to...
This time you screwed up.
No, maybe I... DLSS frame generation.
Interesting.
So maybe I need to reboot.
Huh.
To be fair, Cyberpunk is infamous for having some settings, not applied until you reboot. So maybe that's what's going on here.
But I don't see
Turns out you need to reboot the game after settings changes. Yeah. I know. I don't do a whole lot of benchmarking.
Because I thought this game would also support the multi-frame generation.
It does, or it should, but
maybe we need a driver update for
it.
Because I don't see it right
the
here.
Driver update, or I think it's also
or
something that you can do in the NVIDIA app, I believe. Okay. But then you get like the the optimized profile.
And we can still not benchmark them against each other then, because you can do the multi-frame generation, but 40 series cannot do that.
That would not be a fair comparison, indeed.
No.
Right, so let's do this one more time. I know you can set, in the NVIDIA app, indeed, yeah. Reboot both. No, well, I only need to reboot now, because Mike already did that.
Mine is working.
But in the post screen, I did see that indeed the frame gen was disabled, even though I enabled it manually in the settings. You can override settings in the NVIDIA app, kind of, or at least when it comes to DLSS frame, multiple frame generation.
So question, June STF, how different is the performance of the Vanguard and Supreme? I'm liking the RGB on the Vanguard more. Earlier in slides we actually showed a little bit about this. So if you watch on YouTube, you can also go back to that part in the stream actually if you want. But they're actually very similar in terms of cooling performance, so they look quite a bit different visually.
And also in terms of actual raw gaming performance, you will be hard pressed to notice the difference indeed. Because, I mean, it depends, but all of them are using the same GPU. So there is usually not a huge amount of difference between them.
Okay.
Okay, full screen. Okay. Frame generation. Ah, there we go. See? Multi-frame. Now it's showing me the options.
Yep.
But I'm not sure if it's 4, 3, 2. So, okay, so by default, if I... so this is not really an apples to apples comparison anymore, because by default it's already doing 2 times multiple frame generation instead of what you're having.
Yeah, I don't have this option.
And I'm not sure if it's the same, but let's just, for the sake of it, just pretend like this is the same setting, I guess, and then see what happens. And if there's an extreme difference,
I think it could well be that it is the 2 times, because frame generation by default in the 40 series is kind one real frame, one installed frame.
Yeah.
So let's see what it does.
That would make sense, indeed. So 3, 2, 1.
But yeah, with the ×4, I would lose it big time.
Well, let's find out in a minute. Yeah, indeed. So 2 times is default, 1 frame, 1 real. Indeed. Yeah.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, this makes sense again.
Yeah. This looks more legit indeed. So I'm seeing about, above 100, way above 100, and you're seeing like 70-ish. Yeah. So this, but then again, so like this is still kind of like for like, right? Because I'm not generating more DLSS frames than you are. We are both
Yeah.
having one rendered frame and one DLSS frame,
Yeah.
one generated frame.
And then you can still go further by having ×4.
Yes, I can. See, now I'm a little bit ahead, I think. Actually, does it go faster when you have more frames?
No, not really. I
That
think
would be weird.
No, you can have some variance in loading times.
Yeah.
One time mine was slightly faster than yours.
exactly.
Slightly
Yeah,
faster.
but that one you also had more FPS, I believe. So you were actually. So that's
yeah,
weird.
but the benchmark doesn't go faster when you.
No, because it's not a set amount of FPS. If it
No, it's a
was,
set
then
time.
it would be faster indeed to finish if it's a faster card. But anyway.
That's what you have in some other benchmarks. If
Yes.
you do like rendering benchmarks, like
Cinebench,
you render a frame, then it's just done quicker.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Yeah.
75. Let's double check if we're now the same. Yeah, apart from you having the multi-frame generation setting.
But it's set to ×2, so that should be the same indeed. So yeah, here we're now really seeing that difference.
Yep.
So I'm comfortably at like a minimum FPS is like about 110, and the maximum is 130-ish. So that's quite a big difference. That's almost double.
Last benchmark for today.
Yes.
I will stick to this setting because I cannot do more with frame generation, and you can go to
balls to the walls. I will. Okay, I've changed it, but what I will do is I will reboot the game
In the
just
meanwhile,
to be sure.
I will
Do
pick another winner for the giveaway.
Good question. Or a good.
And then we will have another one at the end of the stream.
Yes. Why does it take so long?
Our next winner for a Steam wallet code is Gondo HU. Congratulations, you also won a Steam wallet code. Please keep an eye on your mailbox and we'll email the code to you in the coming days.
Yes.
With some instructions on how to redeem it. Congrats.
Okay. All right. Let's launch Cyberpunk once more.
Oh, you still have to press play as well.
Yes. Sorry. I was just trying to read
I
up on
had
the
the
chat.
same that I got to that screen and then, oh yeah. And then let's head back to our duo capture.
Yes, yes.
So basically, the rest of our settings are still the same. Only difference now being that Peter will be running the multi-frame generation and I will be running frame generation as it was up until now on the 47.
And obviously I will have way more FPS, or at least that's what I'm expecting. But what I want to look at, and maybe I'm not sure if how accurate it will be through the compression and stuff like that on the live stream, but maybe take a look at the visual quality as well to see if you can see any huge differences there.
Yeah.
And I know, this is rendering on 4K and it's then being compressed to 1080p because that's the live stream resolution. And so there's a lot of potential compression going on, but let's see if you guys can really
spot anything.
Can spot a huge amount of difference or not. Because I think that's also one of the things that with frame generation, multiple frame generation especially, that's one of the potential concerns, if it really impacts visual quality a lot or not. Yeah, everything looks in order. So
okay. So let's run benchmark.
3, 2, 1. Go. Okay.
So now we're comparing apples to oranges.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, this is not fair whatsoever.
No.
This is like me getting rocket boosters while Mike is just putting on some new Nikes.
Yep. That's kind of how it is.
Feels like it.
Yeah, well, yes. Now I'm at a little over 70 or under 70 now.
But okay, let's see. I mean, it looks way smoother than yours, which is not surprising. That's what it's supposed to do, right? Because of more frames.
But it's not that you're like ×4 the FPS. Of course, I'm still having frame generation as well.
Yes.
So yours is interpolate. For each frame, you get 3 extra.
Am I seeing like any major artifact or something? I mean, this is a pre-scheduled and pre-designed path
yours
that
really
it's going.
does look a lot smoother, by the way.
It does, yeah. But that's like, the difference between 80 and 80 is not bad, but over 200 FPS, that's really smooth. And I'm not seeing any major artifacting. Now, granted, this is not like a worst case scenario. Actually, we're moving quite slowly and there's no sudden unexpected movement, so it's not a bad scenario for DLSS. But yeah, in scenarios like this, I I'd be hard pressed to really tell the difference without like slowing down footage. And I mean, I've also seen the hardware unboxed analysis of DLSS 4. There are definitely scenarios where it's not great yet, and it's really causing some artifacting. But overall, I mean, like you also saw it, like the difference in smoothness. That's already.
Here you actually see the time, by the way. It's identical.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But yeah, the frames, not really.
No, it is not even close now.
Yeah. So yeah, multi-frame generation does give you a lot of extra frames.
Wow.
Like Peter mentioned, you can get some artifacts left and right because of course it has to make up or interpolate those frames in between, which is not always easy.
No, and it's not perfect. Like, let's also remember that the first generation of DLSS that came out originally with the 20 series, I think, which was kind of meant to counteract the impact of ray tracing, that at the beginning also had a lot of issues and artifacting, and would look terrible in some situations with a lot of moving parts.
But NVIDIA is also making it better and better.
Exactly. But once we got to DLSS 2 and even 3 in the end, a lot of those problems were fixed, or at least minimized to an extent where you were really having to look for examples in the worst case scenario for where it really kept causing issues. So this is again something they just started with, the multiple frame generation. They also switched the method of how they interpolate or generate those frames. They went from a CNN, which is conventional neural networking, to a transformer model to do it. So it's a completely different approach. So my money is on the fact that these guys are still cooking on this DLSS 4 thing and the multiple frame generation, and it's only going to get better from here on. This is like the starting point. And if I'm comparing this as a starting point to the first generation of DLSS, like the first iteration of DLSS, this is already miles ahead in terms of quality. So mightily impressive, I would say. Definitely.
So next week, Monkit will be back with a cool new monitor. It's one of our latest OLED monitors, the 322 URX, and that one has DisplayPort 2.1.
Hey!
So if you want to learn more about that, make sure to join next week. We will be back on Wednesday again.
Yes.
Same place, same time, but back on our regular slot on the Wednesday with different person for sure.
And different products.
And before
he might use one of those graphics cards because
if I were him,
I was going to say they support that format.
And before we close it for today, we have one more winner for the giveaway. Hey. Peter, the honor is all yours.
Grim Shifter.
Congratulations. You also won a Steam wallet code. Congrats again to all winners.
Yes.
Keep an eye on your mailbox. We'll email the codes to you in the coming days with some instructions on how to redeem it.
Have fun with them.
Thank you so much for watching today, and hope to see you again next week.
See you next week. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.